In this first lesson, we're going to talk about something that really isn't that exciting, but is really, really important, which is saving your files and opening your files. Now, these are really important concepts because Photoshop can take lots of different file formats, but you may be able to only see a certain type of file format when you're working with, let's say, the web, or you're going to take it to print, or you're going to email it to a friend of yours. So there's a number of ways of opening files inside of Photoshop. I'm going to try not to use too many shortcuts because I want you to see where the menu options are. So the first thing we'll do is go to File, Open. Again, you can use the shortcut if you prefer. And when you go to File, Open, you're going to actually load up the standard Windows Open dialog box or Save dialog box. And what I like to do is change this from List to Thumbnails. And again, I'm working on a PC here, so you'll have equivalent things like this on the Mac. And now you can see all of the project files that you're going to be working with. You can download these and work along with me. So there's a number of different file types that we're going to want to talk about. The first one is something like a JPEG. So let's just go ahead and select that and hit Open. And when you do that, it will actually read in the file and open up the image inside of Photoshop. So we're now ready to work with this. And if I save this, we're going to save it as a JPEG, unless we do something different to it, like if we add a layer over here, or we add an adjustment layer, or we add text. At that point, it's going to want to save it as something called a Photoshop document. So let's go to File, Open again, and we'll stick with this thumbnails. And here is a Photoshop document. Notice it doesn't show you a preview in the regular dialog box. It has a PSD icon saying it's a Photoshop. It ends in .psd, so that's very important. And we'll go ahead and open this and take a look. Now it's going to look very, very similar in that it'll look like a picture. And this one I actually have some text, so there's a couple of things that we can look at here. However, if I open up this layers, you notice it has all this other extra information in here. So if I wanted to give this to somebody and they don't have Photoshop, they won't be able to read this file. So it's very important, if I want to hand this off to somebody, that when I go to File, Save As, okay, just come right down here, that we save it not as a Photoshop file, but as something like a JPEG. Now, this can become very confusing. So there's a great option I want you to be aware of, which is if you go to File, Save for the web and devices. This is a great way if you're going to just be sharing your pictures. We'll go ahead and open up this dialog box here. All right, and I apologize if your screen's a little bit cut off here. So with our regular hand here, we can click and drag and look around and see what this image is going to look like. Obviously, this image is going to be pretty massive, right? So if we're going to hand this to a friend via email just for them to look at, we might change this width to something like, I don't know, let's try 512. Let's see what that looks like. When you click away, it will automatically resize and say, okay, that's a nice preview image. Now, right now we're looking at this as a GIF, and a GIF only allows you to have 256 colors. So what we're going to want to do is change this to something like a JPEG. Now, you can go through and play with all of these settings and adjust quality. If you want a high quality, you can take it all the way up to 100. You can use these presets. But ultimately, what we're doing here is just getting a good preview of this image. And now when I hit Save, it's going to say, okay, perfect. Where would you like to store it? And you notice it's going to store it as a JPEG. Now, this would be a file that you can hand over to somebody via the web. If you're going to save this for later work and later edits, so you have all this stuff happening here in your Layers panel, then you'll want to save this as a PSD. And in this case, since it is a PSD, we can just go to File and choose Save. And that will save that document for us. Now, there's also a number of different ways to open files outside of just the File Open or the shortcut. You can actually double-click anywhere in this empty workspace, and it will actually bring up that dialog box for you. So that's one way. You could also click and drag a file from any of your browser windows and you can open them up directly. You can use the mini bridge, which we won't get into in this lesson, but that is available to you. And you can use the standard bridge, which I can pull up for you here, which if you open up your files inside of Bridge, you can click and preview the image, read about all of the metadata. If you have a file that is a little bit more of an advanced file, you'll be able to preview those directly in here as well, which is kind of nice. So, for example, let me just minimize this for a second. If I show you one of these files, which is a camera raw 2 file, and I open it, I can't see a preview, and it's going to actually open up in something called Camera Raw. This was an image shot with a 5D Mark II from Canon. Okay, so we get, this extra dialog box that we're going to have to navigate through. Instead, if I was to browse this in Bridge, what I will actually get is a preview here without actually having to go into Photoshop and see exactly what's inside of this. So again, a number of different ways of opening your files, saving your files, and most importantly, just remember, if you're going to be saving your files to work inside of Photoshop and you have layers, then make sure you save it as a PSD file. If you don't have layers and you're just wanting to just make some quick edits and save it and get it out of the way, you can save it as a PNG or a JPEG or anything that you'd like to. Just remember that if you're going to send it via email, that you might want to save it as a save for web and go through that dialog box. And that way, if you can ensure that the person you're giving it to can actually see it.